drunk players.
So I read your blog post that kind of prompted this whole discussion, and my thing was like all like, you know, try to relate that to other areas, and like you being like a female player, like the first thing that came to my mind was like, well, is it the same to take advantage of like a girl in a bar that's had too much to drink about like trying to sleep with her? You know, to me that like it's not something I could speak on with any experience.
Yeah,
but
I have a couple of opinions about that. One, I don't think it's really like a parallel comparison because you're talking about someone who's like kind of unaware of what's happening and like, you know, they're not really giving consent necessarily so much as being like semi-conscious. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel that way about like a blackout drunk poker player too.
I mean, I feel like there's a level of consciousness you have to like, I mean, I guess you could make the argument for both, but like, there's a level of like mental capacity you have to have at a poker table, even at the bare minimum. But also like, it's weird because as a female, when I thought about that example, I've never been in that situation on the other side. I've never been a woman who's like, oh God, because this guy like turn around and say that I take advantage of him. Like, I've never been in that situation because I'm the prey. I'm not the predator. Seriously. And so when at a poker table, the roles are reversed. And I feel like it's kind of, as a woman, like empowering, like, yeah, I'm the damn predator now, and you're my prey. Like,
I suppose, but I think you would have a little bit more empathy for the prey.
No, I don't. No, I mean I don't, because it's like you finally have an opportunity to kind of like take control and not have any. I mean, I've never been in a situation where like I thought someone was going to take advantage of me, but you're always fearful of it as a woman. You're always like checking if someone's going to follow you somewhere. Like you know, you're on that sort of like prey mentality.
I feel like the maybe one of the differences in your way of looking at that too, from this kind of silly maybe analogy, is though that like maybe the person's like gambling, but if they lose money gambling, that's not the same thing as like being sexually assaulted, right? Because that's obviously like money is one thing,
right?
But it's different than like a physical abuse,
and really
right?
taking advantage of someone in like a moment of weakness.
Like I feel like if you focused it like on like what about if it's a drunk gambler, maybe even, you know, let's just assume it's somebody who like tries not to gamble, he's a degenerate gambler or something, and now he has too much to drink. But now all of a sudden he's playing in a poker game which is like his whole paycheck or something. Now it's a little bit more of a fair analogy because he's going to really regret that happening the next day. Yeah, I mean, so my feeling on it is that like, I don't think that anybody is ever in a position to say what other people should do in these situations. But I know for me, like I have been doing this for like kind of a while, and I kind of know what I'm comfortable with. And one of the things that I've been fortunate with like playing live poker is that I never had to play pretty small stakes because I started out playing online. So by the time I was playing more live poker, I was already playing bigger.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's more kind of sad things that happen sometimes in smaller stakes games. Like I do have one memory of playing 20-40 limit hold'em.
Oh, small stakes 20-40.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, for me it is small stakes. I hate playing 20-40.
Yeah.
But I remember playing with a guy, this was in Southern California, and you know, clearly it was like a Friday afternoon, clearly like playing after work, and a really poor player, going to the ATM, coming back losing, and then he'd be on the phone with like probably his wife or whatever. No, just that, I'm on my way home right now, I'll be home in 20 minutes, you know, I just had to stop, like clearly just blowing like tons of money, you know, I mean, you know, the way he was playing, he's easily going to lose thousands, you know, and, you know, I don't want to stereotype, but you know, just maybe what he was wearing and everything, like, it didn't seem to me like he was going to be fine losing thousands.
Right.
And like, I felt pretty crummy about that. You know, like when I'm playing online, I think it actually probably happens even more because it's sort of like easy for people to, it's play chips, right? It's like, it's just a number on a screen.
Exactly.
So, but it's harder to see, so you kind of just don't think about it as a pro.
But don't you have a feeling like when you're, like, let's say you see this, you see him make the phone call, and in your head you're kind of like, oh, this guy can't afford to do this, and I feel bad. Don't you have a feeling like, okay, well, there's nothing I can really do about it, and if I don't take this opportunity, then somebody else will?
Yeah, I think that voice like makes its argument, but then I feel like when I wake up the next morning, I'd rather let the other person do it. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna have other opportunities. But it's like, again, I have like a complete position of privilege to say all this. Like, I mean, I'm sitting here talking about 20-40, a guy losing thousands and it not being worth my time to play, right? So like, I understand that like, not everybody gets to sit there and say like, oh, I get to pick and choose like who my fish are. Like, like I have to make money.
And that's a very important point because some people are like, playing in cities like, I mean, in Scottsdale, you know, there's Fish, whatever, but like there's places like, you know, with it's like all locals, and you don't have like big fish whales that are showing up that often.
Right.
And you're like, oh man, like I gotta jump on this opportunity, especially if you're like a break-even kind of player and you're trying to like make your way, and you're like, oh man, this is like really could help me out.
Well, you know, like weirdly, like I feel less bad for the guy losing $500,000 than I do for the guy losing 1,000. Like, seems like the $500,000, like that guy can afford it more. But like
to a point.
But like, you know,
until he can't.
Right, until he can't. You know, like the more I think about it, like you're absolutely right. Like there's literally no difference between like what I'm saying is like basically predatory and like basic game selection, which everybody agrees is like an important part of poker, right? Like you're supposed to find games with bad players and sit in them.
Yes.
You're not supposed to wait until you're only playing with guys that like, you know,
like a small edge
that happen to be bad and also, you know, are super rich and only play
right.
medium stake. Like that's a little too specific.
And I would have to say, like again, you're like a little spoiled because there's a lot of guys like that here in Scottsdale.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of them. And that's not normal. It's certainly not as the stakes you're playing for them to be able to maintain the ability to play those games.
Right.
They go broke in most places. You see them for a while and they're gone.
So I have to recognize that, like, you make an excellent point about. But for me, I still feel like, just as my personal belief, that like I need a little disassociation maybe with certain situations.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with trying to take money from people, but I'm not okay if I'm observing like a tangible pain effect on them. Maybe, you know what I mean? I don't know exactly what the threshold is for that pain, but like at some point I feel like pretty icky.
You know what's interesting, and I was just thinking this at this game that I dealt at the Tempe Mission Palms or whatever, is one of the guys that all these people were trying to schmooze and lose money to on purpose.
Right.
Was clearly very successful in business and like had a lot of money. But when he sat down at this table, he was just, I mean, it was like talking to like a 5-year-old.
Right.
Like he didn't have a clue about anything. And it's so weird because it's like I lose respect for you as a person, even though who cares? No, like a vast majority of people don't know a clue about poker.
Well, I've seen that a million times.
Yeah.
You see guys, and like the first thought you have is like, how did this guy
make
succeed?
This much money?
This seems like something he should be able to figure out. But like gambling is just weird like that. It's one of those things that like people don't have a frame of reference for. Like, and it's weird because I don't really remember before I kind of knew the stuff that I know now. But I was that way at one point because
every time you learn something new, you look back and you're kind of like, ooh, I didn't quite know things at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, like literally, like, cause I didn't gamble before poker, so I didn't have the frame of like the idea of I don't even know what you call it, like, expectation of a chance event, right? Like, but I kind of understand that, like, for some people it's just a completely foreign concept, but I really can't identify with it anymore. But I do see that, and it just really reminds me, like, or I mean, I don't know about your parents, but like with my parents, one of them sort of gets it, and one of them really doesn't get it at all.
No one in my family gets it at all.
So I just don't have the like kind of detailed conversations about what it all entails, because like she's super intelligent in her field, but the idea of like the mathematics of randomness and gambling, and, you know,
all
expectation.
My family, all it is it's just a gamble, and there can be skill.
Right, you're not going to explain the difference between poker and blackjack or roulette or slots. You know.
Like we played poker like a couple of times ever, and I remember he did this thing that just like it's like nails on a chalkboard, just like makes me cringe. Where when he bet his chips and he had like a stack of like 3 chips, he just set them down. Like a blackjack bet, and I'm just like, like no, it's such a sign of like a new player.
Well, I was gonna say that's just a random thing you take for granted of like, you know, experience, but
it's knowing how to throw your chips.
I guess.
Or the guy that throws it and just rolls everywhere because he can't figure out.
I'm like, a lot of people tell me that I like look like I'm like mad at my chips when I put them like that. Like I have like a fling. I don't know, like
fling.
Yeah.
Like you're skipping rocks.
But you know, that's a finely honed like
image
of like lack of respect for money that I've crafted over years of gambling.
It's true. Like the amount of time, if I really think about the amount of time it's taken me to figure out how to like, even when I was dealing tonight, like someone would put out a bet, and so I'd flick the chips over so you could spread them and see how much there were. And there was a guy who literally was like, "Did you see how she flicked the chips?" And I was just like, oh my, I mean, I kind of love it, like people are impressed by it, but it's like a status thing. People who are pros understand it, and they know, and they recognize it. Like a certain way that you throw your chips and a certain way that you muck your cards. Like there was one guy at the table who was mucking his cards backwards, And I was like, alright, this guy knows what he's doing. I saw nothing except for how he mucked his cards before he didn't play a hand.
Well, and also it makes me think that, like, do you ever just stop and think to yourself, like this little disc of plastic that actually represents something I could go and purchase, like, you know, and like I couldn't play, like, a lot of no limit players like yourself, like maybe playing games where you bet with cash.
Right.
And like for me, I've never really done that because I started out playing online and now I play limit poker. So I rarely play
it really
where
is
I'm
always
betting with
a
cash.
and
like having that disassociation between the money
and the actual
is
currency.
Kind of easier and huge to me. Like I like the idea of like I'm gonna bet 175 American dollars versus like 7 chips, 7 green chips.
I'm gonna bet my cell phone bill.
So I mean, and I'm sure like that's why gambling games like they use chips because
for sure
you get players to bet more than they would if they were betting with their
with
physical
real money, because it's like scary to like really look at it in your hand and know what it is. Of course, there was a time when I did have to play a lot with cash because Vegas cash played, and so there was a lot of times you had to do that. But I remember specifically telling myself that I had to disassociate and I had to learn to not look at it like what it was, because if I did, then I couldn't play right.
But then like you can't be a professional poker player, like not at the table, but just like in your life, you can't be a professional poker player and then like overdo that side of it either, right? Because then all of a sudden, you'll be in the game and you'll be like, okay, it's right to bluff $600, in cash, whatever, there it goes, it's gone, it doesn't mean anything to me, it's just chips.
Right.
And then you don't go and just like go and fling $600 like at the store or something, without...
That's my problem. The whale that was in Sacramento was on the middle limit game, so the way that the games would work there was you could call in there, like most casinos allow, and you could have your name up for an hour. And so what would happen was people were giving massive tips to the floor and the board people. So whenever this guy called in, these greased floor and board people would just put these names on the board as call-ins and then text them,
tell them
you're up. Right.
Yeah.
And then no one else would get in the game.
Yeah, that seems normal.
Yeah, I didn't know that was normal.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I didn't know that was normal until after the fact, and I was like, God damn it, like if I'd known I would have been doing the same shit, but like, it was so crazy because I ran into him, it was funny, it was on New Year's Eve. And I'm propping, and he's there. And I'm in his game because everyone's out on New Year's Eve.
Oh, wow.
And he's there because him and his wife are having problems, right? And he's sitting at the table with me. And I go, don't you notice everyone's always the same guys that are sitting with you at the table? Like, do you notice that? He goes, yeah. Like, pure, like, fish fashion. He's like, so yeah, I don't know how they always know when I'm going to show up. And I go, do you want to know? I'll tell you how. Like, I want to give him a fair shot, honestly.
Yeah, okay, you're saying that now, but can we keep in mind the fact that like you probably wouldn't have said that if you were one of those people that was doing that on the list?
True.
So, like, you have like personal motivations to change his behavior too.
I'm not going to argue with that. It's true. But
everybody's kind of got their own like
but
personal.
But if everyone had that angle, it would then void itself out.
For sure.
And the reality was, it was these same like 5 guys that were always getting to play with them, and it was bullshit. And so I go, just to call it as a different name. And I remember bragging to people, and I'm like, you're not gonna believe who I told to call in. Like, he's gonna call it as a different name. And then sure enough, like 3 days later, he calls it as the same name.
Maybe part of it too.
Knowing that they're only there, and I told him how they're doing it. He knows they're scheming to play with him and take his money, and he's still okay with it.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me either. Like, I've played enough with these guys to recognize that, like, plenty of people, like, are just competitive people in the world, and so it's, like, weird because they'll channel their competitiveness into, like, well, I know these guys just want to get me, so I'm going to try to get them first, but they won't channel it into, like, maybe I'll try to get better. Because, like, to me, like, the way my brain works for games is, like, okay, I'm not doing well at this. I'm going to try to learn what I can learn to get better at things. But, like, I've seen this a million times with, like, guys that are type A personalities, competitive people that want to get back at those people, but they don't take it to the next level of, like, well, maybe I will educate myself.
This time will be the time.
Exactly. It's more just, like, kind of this, like, rationalization of, like, oh, I'm going to get them. Like, something will work in my favor. Like, and when I have my good day, I want them to be there, you know? Like, that's kind of what it is.
That's exactly what it is. And it, like, totally explained something to me that I was, like, I just really, like, could not understand. And so it just, like, reminded me that just, like, everyone's full of shit. Especially to a girl. Maybe more so to me.
Well, I mean, I was going to, like, this is, like, not the most PC thing to say, but, like, it's news to you that, like, a random guy that's, like, kind of talking to you might, like, say some bullshit to you to try to impress you?
I mean, yeah, yeah, I mean, it's occurred to me. But like, but like once they realize I'm playing poker regularly and like I have a boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, you think maybe he would change tactics? Like.
I just feel like some of the bullshit is not necessarily like gonna get in my pants anyway. It's bullshit about like, you know, basic stuff that's like not important.
Sure. Hundreds of times I've been at a table and, you know, a winning professional poker player will lose a pot and then mutter about like the quote second best hand that he had, and I know that I'm up the card that makes that hand impossible. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he's just inflating the value
Right.
of his hand because he doesn't want to like, you know, whatever. A perfect example, a friend told me that he witnessed this happen where he walked up behind a guy that didn't know that he could see his cards. You know, and he had a king-queen in limit hold'em, right?
Yeah.
And it was a king-high board,
yeah.
and he lost to some hand or whatever.
Yeah.
And after the hand, he's just like, so sick, I had ace-king. And it's like, okay, so king-queen and ace-king are like the same hand. But literally, he was just in such a habit of lying about his hand that he wanted to inflate it just a little bit.
Right.
Like, just to make his hand seem like it was a little bit better, because only good players play ace-king, you know?
Yeah.
Or, you know, and it's just like, it's almost like a habit with people.
True.
I mean, and I wouldn't even, like, I can't even sit here and say that, like, I don't do that stuff at times.
Yeah.
Like, you want to, like, I don't know, you want to project that you're doing good things.
But also in your head, I feel like you're like, as long as I'm not telling the truth, I'm never giving away any real information. I remember when I was propping, I was playing a 1-3 game, and this guy next to me, like, showed me his hand, and he bluffed this guy off of a hand, and he, like, for 25 minutes, like, was like, did you really have that hand? Wow, I could have got you to call if I had bet less. Like, was trying to make it seem like he barely had a better hand, and like he overbet and accidentally got a fold for 25 minutes. He would like, you know, 3 hands go by, and he's like, really, you had that? Like, what if I bet this? Like, I couldn't believe how long he.
That he was just like continuing with it. Like, you're just like, just let it go, man.
I couldn't believe it, and it really like opened my mind. I was like, who else is doing this?
Everybody, yeah.
Everyone is doing it. Like,
whereas I feel like the vast majority of the time that I've seen this like kind of lying about our hands that we were talking about, it's just ego. Like there's very little strategic benefit to it. Like I know if I ever lie about my hand, it's almost never for any strategic reason. It's just literally like embarrassment or ego or you know, maybe just to be a dick and just see if like maybe somebody will believe me. Like, man, you can get people to believe some crazy shit.
I remember you told me once that you're like, man, I bluff sometimes in really bad spots, and like one of these days I'm gonna bluff and someone's gonna call and I'm just gonna fold. And then we were in a game together. We were in an Omaha game together.
I was particularly proud of this hand. No, I just like let out like 6 ways.
On the flop.
On some like innocuous board, like 5-5-3 or something.
And then the turn you
bet. You like called, and there was like 4 other people.
I called light too. I remember I called light.
I at the time wasn't thinking that was the case, but I think I just mucked before the turn card came out because I had nothing and I didn't want to hit anything.
No, I'm the only one who called. That's okay.
Yeah. The dealer's like doesn't know what's going on. And like but I also just like to do dumb stuff, you know. Like I had a friend this summer. I played in the main event for the first time, the World Series main event, and I never played no limit. I'm a pretty bad no limit player, but it's, you know, whatever. Like I played it, and before the tournament, I was talking to my friend, and we were like, "What if somebody 3-bet you?" And you know how people tank like in no limit tournaments, particularly in the main event, and you had to 4-bet in the pot. Like literally as their 3-bet hits the table, you 4-bet. And so I did it the first time.
You planned to do it?
I planned to do it and I did it. Like this guy sits down and I have some junky hand. Of course you did. I'm a complete maniac. Everybody. So I have like ace something maybe, and I raise, and I can see he's gonna 3-bet me, and so I can kind of guess like what size he's gonna do. You know, I can't remember what the blinds. There's probably small, you know, maybe 100, 200 blinds.
Okay,
so
I would hope it would be early.
I maybe made it like 450, and he's probably gonna make it like 1,300. So I'm like quickly trying to calculate like a reasonable amount of 4-bet too. So I think I grabbed like 4K. Yeah. Right, and he puts out the re-raise, and my 4K is out there at the same time, right? So and the dealer's a little confused, and she's just like raise. Well, right, because then I just don't say anything.
Then they're thinking like, did you bet out a turn? You like?
But it wasn't out of turn. It was in turn. But it was just like within 1 second, right? Yeah. And he ended up folding.
No.
And then like later, like
so.
But he didn't know me. He just got moved to the table too, so it worked. It was great.
Yeah.
So then like later I showed down just terrible hand after terrible hand,
like,
bluff after bluff, and I could just see like that this guy was probably thinking like, oh, I did the worst thing ever. Like this guy did something, and because I confused the crap out of him. He's probably nobody's ever. I mean, it's so stupid, really. Like
in the main event of all.
Or just, I mean, I'm just saying like I did it, and I'm feeling big that I did it, but it's really pointless. Like it was just to see if I could. I like to do things just to see if I can.
Well, it's nice that it was super successful on your first.
It worked out that time, you know.
Yeah. Why hope we didn't try it again?
Well, no, but I mean, it would have been great if I had like a good hand the next time and did it right again. That would have been amazing. But
that would have been
the situation never came up. You know?
That would have been amazing.
But yeah, I like to do that stuff. I mean, the one thing I do like about No Limit is I try to find a creative thing to do, even if like it's not called for. Like the best thing to do is to have like a huge pot and then make a minimum bet on the river.
You know, I was just thinking about this recently. Is one of the bets that I really hate to deal with like new players is like it's like a small pot. It's like a whatever like. Maybe we're playing like a 2-5 game and it's like a $40 pot and they're just like 500. And you're just like, God, like everything my brain tells me like I have to fold any kind of mediocre hand here, but like I just hate it. I just hate it so much. Like, and I want to almost use it, but I just can't bring myself to make a stupid fucking bet like that ever.
Well, and like strategically, like there could be reasons to make like a fairly big overbet, but that might be a little extreme, right?
Right,
like,
when people are just like shipping, you know.
I mean, obviously it's usually not a sign of a strong player, but usually they still probably have something.
Yeah.
But it's like there's nothing more gratifying than like actually having it and like, you know what I mean? Like you're supposed to make like $30 and instead you make like hundreds because the guy, you know, so the problem is you just never have it. Like I don't know about you, but I never have it. Like,
just ever?
I once thought I had it, but I was wrong. Like so hard to have it. How do people just have it?
I know.
Whatever I call, they have it.
Yeah, there was something that you were saying, like, you know, recognizing a weak player, and something that I put in one of the blogs was, like, your tip sizing and how, like, how big of a sign it is that when people are tipping big that they're definitely weak players. Like, you're never going to see a pro over tipping a dealer.
Yeah. Well, like, I know from what I've seen, like it's usually guys that play in the pit and they just use like whatever the chip is that's in play, right? Like like and the dealers I'm sure are like in heaven, right? Like you're playing green chip game or something and like like you win a pot, here's a $25 chip. Like I hope this guy wins every hand.
No, and that's actually how it is as a dealer. Is you'll be sitting at the table and you'll know pretty quickly who like the standard tippers are and who like the above average tippers are and who like the non-tippers are.
Sure.
And you start to root for people. And you can't help it.
Of course, like that's your whole like job or your whole livelihood.
When they fold pre, you're like, oh, like a little bit
like, I have to keep doing my job even though the reward is going to be so much less.
I have to deal with like the next 3 minutes of this hand and know that I'm not going to get this guy's tip, you know? But like, you know, over the summer when I was dealing at Venetian, like, you get a lot of European guys and you don't tip in Europe. Like, you're not allowed to tip. And so you get guys who, in my mind though, just as like this fuck you kind of mentality is I'm like, I know you see people tipping, like you might be from a place where they don't and it's not your habit.
Like you might forget one time, but if you play 5 hours and you've not figured out that people usually tip after they win a hand,
then you're a dick. It's not right. You know better.
Like when you go to another country, you know that you should probably try to pay attention to the customs and stuff that are there. Like you don't just like go like, I'll just do things my way because I'm an American and everything's perfect, you know? Like, I mean, I guess you do, like a lot of Americans do,
but like there's so many times that I've used tipping to like grease the wheels in certain situations, like put me to the top of the list or get me on that table, you know, bump me ahead of the must move or whatever, and like go get me some McDonald's from Monte Carlo while I'm playing here at 4 a.m. Like, whatever things you need, like, you're able to tip, and if you're in a place where you, like, literally are not allowed, like, it's just so limiting.
What's funny is that's not even, like, a country-specific thing. That's literally, like, a regional thing, because, like, I've played in a lot of places, and I'm sort of familiar with, like, the things that you just said, but, like, we're here in Arizona, and, like, I don't think that stuff happens, like, that often.
No.
Like, there's, in Vegas, there's, like, a lot more culture of, like, it's totally standard that you can set rules and policies based on your tipping amounts, right? Like I remember one time when I was like pretty young and I was there with like friends and you know I had made some money from poker, so I kind of felt like I was like a bit of a big shot in Vegas compared to them because they were just complete tourists who were just there enjoying the sights, and I had spent time there already. And we were going out to dinner or something, the cab line was just incredibly long, and I just like walk up to the front, you know, what are those guys called that, you know, kind of get you the cabs and just call them, and, you know, the bell guys, whatever, and I just give them a $20 bill and I'm like, hey, we need 2 cabs and I don't want to wait in line, you know, and the guy's, I'm like, can you do anything for us? And the guy's like, yeah, stand over there, I'll send you it. You know, and then everybody was like blown away. They were like, I can't believe you just did that. Like, that's that coolest thing. And then of course probably people were like in line, they're like, what the fuck did that scumbag just do? You know? But like that doesn't fly everywhere. You know, there's some places
true.
that's fine and there's some places it's totally not fine.
You're totally right.
Like the greasing thing that you mentioned, like, you know, you do it in the wrong place and all of a sudden they look at you like, what do you think? Like you can just buy my dignity or whatever? And it's like,
yes.
Well, yeah, kinda. I mean, like,
you could probably buy mine for a certain price. Being a girl at the table is, I mean, it's just fun. I think for the most part because you just get a different perspective.
I guess it's probably like depending on your personality too. Like maybe some girls would not find it to be fun.
Well, most of those girls wouldn't play poker. I don't think.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Like filters
the kind of girl who would ever wind up at a poker table comfortable sitting with like 8 dudes and playing a competitive gambling game are the kind of people that I think are like comfortable enough in their own skin to like be able to socialize and interact with these people and handle themselves. Because it's intimidating. I mean, it's intimidating.
Yeah, it filters out probably a lot of girls that are maybe like fledglingly interested in poker, but not like
especially now that online poker is so limited
that
they'd have to literally just walk to a table to really learn what they're doing, and that's terrifying, even from a man's perspective. Because the idea of like not being good at something right in front of the guy who's there and better than you to take your, I mean, I can't even imagine like from a man's perspective the ego hit you would take to walk up to that table and knowing that you're not good. And your money, I mean, it's like whenever a guy is like trying to be some macho like guy to someone else, it's like, I got hot girls, I got a lot of money, but you're sitting there just like so exposed, like my money's at risk and you could take it from me and like look me in the eye while you do it.
Well, I think too though, like keep in mind that like we said earlier, like for a lot of people gambling, like they don't think of it like it's not strategic that they're worried about, but it is even like just as simple as like if you haven't played in the casino, like the speed of the mechanics of like the action moving around the table, you know, you're totally
it's daunting.
Out of your element. It seems like everything's happening
and it's like, oh, I gotta go, and how much, and then you're rushed,
you know,
and you just do things like, oh,
like stuff we just completely take for granted. Like I can be watching a sports game and eating and texting and still play in turn without even thinking. Right. You know, and these people are just like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on.
And it's like, dude, come on, man. It's been like 2 seconds.
It would be a little like, you know, difficult, like, you know, if it's hard to put myself in that perspective.
Yeah.
Like, kind of the learning person, but then like to have you specifically, like, just like, you know, with that attitude, like, I mean, I guess it's why you get that whole like power on the shoe on the other foot thing that you mentioned earlier. Like, I can see why you enjoy that aspect of it.
It's really, this is actually a whole other topic, but it's really, really easy to trash talk someone who doesn't really know how to play poker but is competitive. So like one of my favorite things to say to someone if I know that they're just like super noob player and like they've got attitude with me is if I happen to have more chips in front of me is I'll be like, well, I have more chips in front of me, therefore I'm a better player than you. So when you have more chips than me, then you can talk shit to me. Which, by the way, from a man's perspective, of a girl to say that to them is just like, you want to rip her hair out. You're like, what the fuck? Like, fuck you, no. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to shit talk. Plus, I'm just good at it anyway.
I see.
And so if I really want to, like, cut you, like, especially at a poker table, like how you say you walk in a room and you're like, I just own this.
Right. You're like very comfortable in that exact scenario. You're like, I'm ready for this war. Like,
I feel like I'm like the Robin Hood of the bulliers because if I see someone do something to someone else, like they angle shoot them or whatever, then I go after that guy.
Oh, sure.
Like, fucking with that dude. For example, the poker thing I dealt over the weekend. So these are all guys who don't know what they're doing. It's the softest game ever, but they're all invited for this particular event. However, within the company I'm there with, there's a guy who comes, and he just comes under the guise of being with our company, and then he plays.
Oh, wow. So he's got a nice gig.
Right. In this particular event. This is the only event that he can come and play all year. So he's sitting there in this game, and I'm dealing the game, but I'm looking at him like a player, and I'm hating him. Because there was a situation where, like, in the game that I was dealing, the 3-5 that I dealt, if someone threw like a 25 chip, it's a raise. There's no 1 chip rule. Like these guys,
they don't know.
It's understood what your intention was. No, we want the game to go quickly. We know that's 100. It's 100. Whatever. We're not going to. It's 1 chip and it's 5 or whatever. So, anyways, this is the mentality of it. So I'm sitting in this game, dealing to him, and it gets this guy, there's a raise to him, and he wants to go all in. It's obvious he wants to go all in. It goes like this, and like this. And so, of course, the guy who's there with us is like, string bet.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, I can't really argue because I am the dealer, and it is a rule. And this wasn't the 3-5, this was like the 1-2 the day before.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, the rule is it's a string bet. You got to either announce you're all in or do it all in one motion. You know, he's got like $30 behind. And of course, he flats, and the river comes out, and he goes, check, check, whatever. He's like, oh, I guess I should let him go all in. And I'm like, what? And so then, the thing that really pissed me off was not just that. It was that 10 minutes later, he goes to throw out a bet, and he throws out 3 green, and he pulls one back. And I go, that's going to be 75. And he's like, well, you know what my intention was. And I go, well, I knew what his intention was, and you called a string. So if we're going to be tight on the rules, then I'm going to call all the rules. So that was a string, and this is a bet of 75. Like, and people like that just like, I see him being a dick to this guy who's just like a new player and taking advantage of rules that no one here knows, and I'm like, I'm coming after you now. Yeah. Now you deserve my wrath. Like, and I've justified in my head that you deserve it.
Well, you're one of the few people that might be a dealer that really kind of understands like the angle, like the strategic kind of angle shot side of it too. You know, like a lot of dealers maybe don't look at it from the perspective of like, why is this person doing this?
Yeah,
you know, but
I think
as a player, you sort of see it differently.
I think it's true that there are a lot of dealers who don't notice it. I think it's more true that most of them who do know just don't care.
Yeah, they're just like,
they don't want to get involved. They don't want to have a
nothing
conversation.
Good can happen by making a scene or whatever.
But for me, I'm always like the representative of the player. Like, I feel like I'm a player first before I'm a dealer because I was. And I started dealing because I just love the game. And I like, when I deal, I'm interested. And I'm like watching the hands and I'm like, I think he has this. And like, people are going, you know, I love it. Like, but I remember my first day dealing at the Venetian. I remember all these dealers gather around in the back and we're all swiping in to like clock in for the day. And they were all bitching about the players. And I was like, fuck these guys. Like, I'm a player, you know? And I remember specifically they were talking about this one particular game. I feel like I shouldn't name it. But it's a specific limit game. And I was like, whatever, like, you guys are just dicks and you don't know poker players. It's just, we're different than you.
Okay.
And then I dealt this game, and I was almost brought to tears on 2 or 3 occasions dealing this game. And it's because they just have no patience. They're so mean, and they're all yelling at you at the same time, and like, I guess I should tell you what it is so you can understand. It was
like a small stakes mixed game?
It's the 8-16 high-low.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, just like my stereotypical, like, idea of that game was just a bunch of, like, old angry people.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
That's 100% what it was. And not just, like, in the beginning, I didn't know about, like, you know, 3/4ing pots, and like I take half of your bet, and like I didn't know any of the stuff, and like I didn't know what chips I could split because it's like a green chip, a $2 chip game, and so you can split the $2 chips, but in the 15-30 you can't split the 5. It's like 5 and 1.
Yeah, that could be really confusing.
Right, and so I'm trying to learn this in front of them, and they're telling me what to do, and then I'm calling the floor to verify, and they're like, no, we're telling you what it is, and I'm like, well, I just can't take your word for it, so like I'm new, and I'm going to ask the floor, because if I make a mistake, and I'm like, well, the player said, then where's my recourse? Like, and it's the same thing in like
the player said just give them all the money in my rack. Like, they said it would be fine.
I mean, it's just like, this is my job, like, and I want to do a good job, and I'm new. Like, just give me a couple months, and then like I'll be proficient. I'll be better than anyone else. Like, and then I was, and they loved me. Whenever I came to like, oh, tell us there was a relief drink here. But there was like a learning period there where like it was so difficult, and I was like, wow, the dealers are right. Like, some of these players are really assholes. But then like I get like, you're sitting there playing this already slow game that's like, you're not in the hand, and it's like 5-way, high-low split pot bullshit, and you know, you get a deal in them and slowing it down a little bit, and they don't know the fastest way to chop the pots, and I mean, I kind of get it.
Well, and it's like funny that you're telling me this story, because like I played mixed games, like live mixed games, where it's very common that a dealer won't understand how to deal all the games, and it's like, it gets pretty tiring, like constantly like training the dealers like on the fly when you're playing like
that's
pretty big stakes.
Fault. It's not the dealer's fault.
So I'm saying like, it sort of like makes sense to me that the players are going to end up being like grumpy, and like a new dealer is going to hear from the other dealers. It's like a total perspective thing, right? Like, where they're just like, oh, those players are all jerks, and all the players are like, oh, these dealers are all so bad. Like, you know, it's like
it's so funny, and it's like everyone's kind of like trying hard, but I do feel like there's a majority of dealers who just are checked out. And I get it, like, people go to their job and they're like excited about it, and they just are there to make their money or whatever, but it is a customer service job. Like, being a dealer is not just like a robot there dealing cards. Like, there's some necessity to like the interaction and like looking out for the players.
Right.
You know, you having a conversation with seat 9 and missing what's happening over here is a problem.
Right.
Like, you need to always be focused on everything and doing your best to like maintain the dignity of the game. It makes me like really upset, angry.
I guess it's pretty much like any industry where you've got people that are kind of doing the bare minimum, and you've got people that are really interested
People
in
are
sort
working
of
for
like.
tips.
Well, yeah, I guess that's.
They're working for tips. It's not like an hourly wage. You're like, I can just do whatever the fuck I want and I make my $13 an hour. Like, they're there living off of what they're earning from you.
That's a good point. And then it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, where like it's like awesome when you meet somebody that's like either really successful or even maybe sort of famous or something, but then you're like, you could see that they're kind of clueless in an area that you really know what you're doing in, and you just like sort of feel, you know, you feel the mantra power.
I'll help you out. Don't worry. I'll walk you through this.
I'll tell you one funny story about that. That's like sort of unrelated, but it's sort of related. I was in Vegas during the when the NBA All-Star Game was in Vegas, which like turned into the biggest shit show ever. They had like shootings, and it was like crazy. Like
what year was this?
Oh man, I'm gonna guess 2010, but I'm not sure if that's right.
Okay.
But the whole strip was just about as crazy as it's ever been. You just slammed full of people, and I was in like the Bellagio poker room, and I think Allen Iverson and a couple other celebrities were playing some like big no limit game, and there's just tons of people around them, and like, you know, their entourages are standing in the rooms like that. The people in that room's small. Like, there's not a lot of like extra space.
There really isn't.
You know, so they've got their bodyguards like hanging out there, and it's just complete chaos.
Yeah.
And then like later that night, I'm at the Wynn poker room, and they're quietly wearing headphones and playing 15-30 limit hold'em is Tim Duncan. This is like probably like a perfect example of like the personalities of like those two people I named. It might have been even earlier than 2010 because
that's amazing.
I feel like it was a while
I can
back,
just see him whenever I see him. Like, I've never listened to him talk or do an interview or whatever, but he just seems very like
regular,
like just slow moving, kind of like quiet guy, like. You know?
Yeah. From what I would guess so too.
Like, he reminds me of like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Sure.
He's just like slowly sauntering.
Alright, I'm gonna play some basketball.
Yeah, exactly.